South Park has always been the one show that could get away with absolutely anything. Religion, politics, celebrities, it didn't matter. But over the past few seasons, something's changed. We're getting less Cartman getting abducted by aliens while farting satellite signals out of his butt, and more serialized epics where tech billionaires treat Cartman's brain like a prophecy, trying to crack the code of 6-7 to stop the Antichrist and prop up a fake flag-waving version of Christianity that nobody even understands. There's been a noticeable shift over the last decade, from the chaotic standalone adventures of Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny to these more structured serialized plot lines about Trump, ICE, Peter Thiel, Charlie Kirk. And now don't get it twisted, I'm not saying South Park fell off, we're not talking about Family Guy here, but I do think there's an interesting conversation to be had about the direction they're heading in. I mean, the show's obviously moved away from the raw, unpredictable energy of the early seasons. Like, instead of focusing on the boys and their innocent reactions to a messed up adult world, the spotlight now more so relies on side characters like Randy or PC Principal, who are basically mouthpieces for real-world political satire. Every season feels more like a chapter in a bigger social commentary and less like the wild, ridiculous playground that it used to be. It's almost turned into a weekly social thesis that's disguised as comedy. And the most recent episode might be the clearest example of this shift just yet. Not just in how the jokes land, but in how the show frames modern America, politics, religion, data surveillance, and culture, all through this bizarre 6-7 internet meme. What starts off feeling like classic Cartman chaos slowly unravels into a full-on critique of modern American extremism, tech overlords, and performative faith. The episode starts off with Butters running through the hallways, yelling the 6-7 joke at everyone. And that's definitely something I love about South Park. If there's something you don't understand or were even aware of within pop culture or politics or society as a whole, you can count on South Park to bring it to your attention through ridiculous satire. Like, I didn't know what the hell all the fuss about Labubu's were about until I watched that last South Park episode. And it's the same thing with 6-7. I've heard people say it. For the life of me, I couldn't understand why. I know 6-9, I don't know 6-7. Then Cartman comes in and says that he 6-7'd Wendy from behind. And that's when I knew I had to look up the joke. Enough was enough. And I understand why in the episode they're making the whole thing about how adults and basically the entire world except for the kids themselves understand this joke, because there's really not much to understand. I've seen a lot of brain rot in my day, and to this day this is the lowest level form of nonsensical memeism that I've ever seen on the internet. And let me do a little shameless plug here. Most of you guys might not know, or probably do know, that I have a hip-hop page, Rapaholics, on YouTube. Check it out. But I was surprised to know that the 6-7 meme actually derives from a rap song that I have never heard before. Doo Doo by Skrilla. He's from 67th Street in Philadelphia, hence the song title 6-7. The 6-7 song was then used in a bunch of TikTok memes, mainly ones documenting NBA highlights. LaMelo Ball, he's 6 feet 7 inches, 6'7". There was an edit of him, and in the edit where they said 6-7, the 6-7 song started playing. Then you had this TikToker slash basketball player, Taylon Kinney. He started saying 6-7 and, waving his hands up and down. And then you had this kid who really took it off into global superstardom. And now you have the whole world specifically manufacturing questions where the answer will be 6-7. Also, they could do this hilarious 6-7 meme. Absolutely hilarious. And the whole premise of the South Park episode, which actually reflects what's going on in real life, is that this 6-7 joke is almost so nonsensical and so void of real context or comedic depth that it feels like the entire world is kind of just not in on some sort of inside joke. And shout out to the YouTube channel Scroll Deep, because they actually kind of predicted this entire South Park episode, theorizing that the 6-7 meme is actually a ploy by the far-right Christian MAGA people to eradicate 6-9, the vulgar number, from our vocabulary, and instead replace it with 6-7.
This also points to a conspiracy theory I have, that all of this 6-7 stuff is a move by the Christian right, the MAGA people, to permanently replace the humble 69 with the much more chaste and non-sexual 67. If you look at, the connections between Taylor and the 6-7 kid and RFK Jr., it's a big web and it all connects.
That really kind of foreshadows what we would see in this South Park episode, because immediately after Cartman, Butters, and the entire school are laughing hysterically at this 6-7 meme, PC Principal, Power Christian Principal, he calls a meeting with the school concerned about satanic numerology that's been going on in the classroom. What he's referring to, obviously, is 6-7, but isn't 666 the satanic number? And what, last episode, he had no concern with the demonic rituals that were going on with the Labubu dolls that were sweeping the school? Only Jesus cared about that, the school counselor? And speaking of Jesus, PC Principal then introduces someone who is of the highest authority on biblical prophecies. And yes, Jesus the counselor is standing right there, but it's not him. The expert is Peter Thiel. He even has a cute little theme song written about him where he's the expert of the Antichrist, essentially. So Peter Thiel, if you guys didn't know, he's a billionaire. He was the first outside investor into Facebook, which made him a billionaire. He co-founded PayPal. He served as their CEO. He co-founded Palantir Technologies, which is a major data analytics company. He's a controversial figure, and he's known for supporting very right-leaning political causes in the US. I'm a Canadian. I know nothing about these people. Again, I have South Park to thank for all this education. So Mr. Thiel, he starts talking about the Antichrist. He says the Antichrist will be a newer, more human form of Satan that will soon walk the earth. And if you guys don't remember, Trump and Satan have been dating and are expecting a baby pretty soon. Peter explains how God shrank Satan's butthole so small that nothing could fit in it, and he couldn't have any offsprings or reproduce. But you want to know the one thing that could fit in Satan? Of course, the longest running joke of this new South Park season, it's Trump's tiny wiener. And throughout Peter's whole monologue about the Antichrist coming from Trump's tiny wiener, it's very 6-7 coded. The Antichrist is expected to walk the earth in 6 to 7 weeks. Trump's wiener is 6 to 7 centimeters, which, yes, is small, but stick with me. I feel like if they're trying to say his thing is that small, so much so to the point where every new South Park episode features a joke about his tiny wiener, 7 centimeters doesn't really do it justice. And the whole 6-7 numbers tying into the Antichrist stuff, it's very similar to the Illuminati back in the day. All the reaches that people would go through to show how different Hollywood figures were a part of the Illuminati. Oh, this musician's wearing a jacket with the number 6 on it 3 times. Jay-Z's throwing up a triangle with his hands. It's not the rock, it's the pyramid. And I mean, did you guys believe all that demonic coded symbolism stuff back in the day? Is 6-7 some demonic thing? Am I missing something? Anyway, speaking of the demons, Satan and Trump are at some sort of paternal yoga class. Trump is begging Satan for sex, but Satan says it's bad for the baby. And I thought as I was watching this, but wasn't Trump trying to get rid of the baby? If you guys remember the last episode, he was trying to get Satan to abort that thing. Well, right as that thought pops into my head, JD Vance walks into the White House to let Trump know that every clinic in America has banned abortions, except for one. There's still one clinic that could give Trump the chance to get rid of his Satan baby. And if you guys weren't keeping up with the season, it was JD Vance who was trying to convince Trump to get rid of the baby so that he can be Trump's successor, essentially. And it's at this point in the episode where we understand that PC Principal, Trump, the entire government, all this Christianity stuff they're pushing on the school and society as a whole, you know, bringing Jesus into the school and all that, it's all a facade. Jesus asks PC Principal where he really fits in here into the school because, of course, again, you have the prophet of the Christian Bible in your school and you're using him as a measly school counselor, a job he's not even good at. And ultimately, Jesus asks, what brand of Christianity is PC Principal even in? And he says, it's the kind that loves his country and doesn't tolerate any FAGSs. Which is absurdly hilarious because the PC in PC Principal used to stand for politically correct. Just a year ago, he was defending everything LGBTQ related. And South Park is showing that this is a complete grift to just sway voters, right? From the president banning abortion clinics, but still wanting to get an abortion himself, to PC Principal quickly making the shift to Christianity and pushing it onto the kids without even knowing anything about the religion itself. It speaks to the real world situation of Trump's love for Christianity being all a ploy to resonate with his ideal voting demographic. At least that's how I interpret the message Matt and Trey are trying to convey here. Again, I'm a Canadian. I don't really know nothing about Trump's religious ideologies. But back to South Park. Remember Vice Principal Strong Woman? Well, yeah, she's got strong knockers now. And according to PC Principal, that's the sign of becoming a bigger Christian. PC Principal asks Jesus himself if he's ever seen a bigger Christian in his life than her. So meanwhile, Cartman is abusing the 6-7 joke. He's asking his mom things like how long is her menstrual cycle? Of course, it's 6 to 7 days. He ends up laughing so hard that he pukes, almost like a demon is coming out of his body every time he hears the joke. And with Jesus being confused on where PC Principal lies within his Christianity, PC Principal flips it and tries to get Jesus more in touch with his Christianity by setting him up on a blind date with a woman who also has a very large surgically enhanced chest. Trump makes his way to the abortion clinic. He tells the doctor that if he doesn't sneak into the White House to secretly give Satan the abortion, then the doctor will be sued. Another running joke in the season because, of course, Trump is out here suing everyone. The doctor says, though, he doesn't know how to operate on Satan, only on humans. Trump will need an expert on the Antichrist to perform this operation, and that would, of course, be Peter Thiel, who's now telling the school board that the children are in a cult involving the numbers 6 and 7. He says in order to get to the bottom of the problem, he's going to need to access all the school's private data. And then ultimately, this entire situation is summed up perfectly. Jesus asks the question, is this what we've all come to? All of us handing over our personal data to some tech billionaire who's preaching about the Bible? Well, on the opposite end of the Bible, Cartman is fully possessed by the devil at this point. He's in an ultrasound of some sort or an MRI. Everything related to 6-7 keeps making him laugh profusely until he vomits, and somehow he finds new creative ways to ask questions to which the answer could only be 6-7. How many days can he live if he continues vomiting every time he laughs at 6-7? Only about 6 to 7 days. They don't know what the hell is wrong with him. Meanwhile, we find out that Peter Thiel is actually in communication with JD Vance. Both of them are trying to stop the Antichrist from being born, aka Satan's child. Peter Thiel, in order to crack the code, he needs to understand what the meaning is behind 6-7. Somehow everything relates to that number, and the children are obsessed with making jokes about it. I didn't understand how that ties into the Antichrist, and they didn't really give us a logical explanation by the end of the episode, but we'll touch on that later in this video. And by the way, I haven't really been the biggest fan of the tiny wiener continuous Trump joke, but they definitely did make the funniest reference to it later in this episode when Trump starts pleasuring himself with 2 chopsticks. Meanwhile, Peter Thiel is visiting the child who is most possessed by the 6-7 numbers, and that would be, of course, Cartman. Peter Thiel is just spamming him with 6-7 sentences, and Cartman ends up puking all over him. And it's funny because usually Cartman is the one who's obsessed with food, but this time he can't keep his food down. And speaking of food, Jesus is back on a dinner date with the large-chested woman who's telling him about how great of a Christian she is. Jesus is questioning if we've lost the plot, if we should all just love each other more instead of surveying each other and fighting over who's the bigger Christian. But PC Principle emphasizes that's what the current state of the world is all about. Who can be the best Christian possible, even though they don't truly understand what the religion represents. And ultimately, Jesus loses it. He says that everyone in the town has a very warped perception of what Christianity truly is. He calls out PC Principle to tell him that he needs a way to bully people, and he's using the Bible as a mechanism to do so. Meanwhile, Peter Thiel takes Cartman to Washington to unlock the secret demons that Cartman possesses. And the episode ends on quite a cliffhanger, because we don't actually see if Cartman made it to Washington. His mom won't let him go since he's very sick. Meanwhile, Jesus seems to end up embracing the new meaning of Christianity, which is just being a brute bully, using the religion as a weapon to stand on a higher moral ground. He shaves his beard, cuts the sleeves off his shirt, and takes the girl with the large chest back to his house, who I still don't know the name of. And that's literally how the episode ends. It was an interesting one for this season, which actually ended up being renamed to season 28, even though season 27 was only about 5 episodes. I feel like it kind of opened up several new storylines. It didn't close any, but it left the opportunity for the season to continue in a way that a lot of the newer South Park seasons have, where you have these very sequential and continual episodes where one situation from one episode leads into the next pretty much for the entire season. Like, we now don't know if Trump will get an abortion. We don't know if he'll have a child with Satan. We don't know what's possessing Cartman. Will the 6-7 joke continue running throughout the school and throughout the season? We don't know what role Jesus will play in the whole thing. And where has Mr. Mackay been, right? Throughout the entirety of this season, he's been gone ever since he became an ICE agent and got stuck at Mar-a-Lago. We also saw a brief appearance from Tally at the end of this episode when JD Vance was in the bathroom having a secret call with Peter Thiel, trying to stop Trump from having the baby with Satan, aka the Antichrist. But Tally didn't say anything. Will he end up escaping the White House? There's so many questions here that are left unanswered. But they're all rooted in this meta political, societal, religious commentary, right? And honestly, I like when there's less pressure or suspense or less consequences to a South Park episode. I'd rather they keep it somewhat lighthearted. Like, they kind of did that well with the Labubu episode, but I feel like their storylines in older seasons had a lot more room to thrive because they could concoct the most wild storylines, the most wacky adventures and hijinks that the characters would get into, but there was no real consequences, right? And as a result, you can push how wild and outlandish these episodes could be because you knew it would all come full circle by the end of the show. Like, I like the idea that I can miss one episode of the season and not have to worry about not understanding certain jokes or references, and I don't need all these external characters having such a serious role with such grand social commentary. Like, it kind of pisses me off that we didn't see Kyle, Kenny, Stan for this entire episode, and we barely saw them for the entire season. And it almost seems like this is done on purpose. Like, this whole narrative of Trump and Satan will lead the boys having to do something to stop Trump from doing something crazy to the world. But I don't even care for that. I would just rather see them mess around, trying to deliver a Lord of the Rings corn movie back to Blockbuster, burying Butters in a bunker so Cartman can go to Kyle's birthday party instead of him, having the school gerbil get stuck in Mr. Slave's butt so that Mr. Garrison can get fired from the school. I mean, even with storylines like that, you were still getting that meta societal commentary about, homophobia within society. But it was done so in a way where the characters didn't feel like they were the subject of this societal chaos, but more so, they were the agents of chaos. They were the ones causing these outlandish things to go down, instead of kind of being like the puppets or the victim of whatever craziness is going on within society. And it created a more unique universe for them to exist in. And don't get me wrong, again, South Park is still great for many reasons. I love the creativity behind spinning this 6-7 joke into this satanic ritual, this grand storyline, or flipping the Israel situation into a plot about the absurdity of online betting. It's very creative, but it feels like South Park fits a different purpose than it used to. It's not meant to just satirize the absurdities of society, but more so act as a time capsule of where we are at this point in time. Outside of just the mission it used to have of creating the most jam-packed, absurd, but still tight-knit stories about Matt and Trey's observations of the world, it went from feeling like this was a reflection of Matt and Trey's world to Matt and Trey's observations of the world as a whole, which kind of takes out the human element of the show and makes it sometimes feel more like a lecture on the downfalls of society rather than poking fun at random everyday things. But at the beginning of this season, or should I say season 27, they were implying through Cartman's identity crisis now that woke is dead, that they don't know where a show like South Park's place is within the current world, where everything's so polarized, tensions are higher than they've been in decades. And I guess these highly politicized macro-environmental storylines are the medium that they feel best utilizes the show's strong suits. And while it might not hit like it did back in the day, regardless, no matter what they are, I'm still here for the adventures. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.